Welcome to your Jock Market Power Hour for this week's AT&T Byron Nelson. I'm Rick Gave me that right there. Joe Iadoni. Joe, it's another Wednesday, which means another Jock Market Power Hour. Lots of early movement already in the Jock Market.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What's good, buddy? Happy to be here again with you. As always, happy to see our friends here. Some are already in the chat. Make sure to drop your handle in there. We're giving away some free money again this week. And yeah, tons of early. Got some guys crossing into double digits here right at 8:15 p.m. So I think a lot's going to sort of shake loose here in the next 45 minutes. We'll be here to ride along with you guys.
The free money that Joe mentions, you can acquire your free money by dropping your Jock Market username in the chat right now, and we will give out 100 Jock Bucks in $20 increments 5 times throughout the show. We'll get our first one underway here in just a few minutes, so make sure to drop your handle. And if you've stumbled into this live stream and you have no idea what is going on, first of all, welcome. How'd you get here? I'd like to know. I'd like to find out. Second of all, the IPO phase is open right now. So, Joe, until about 9 p.m. Eastern time, you are able to bid on shares of golfers for the price that you think is right for them to play this week's Byron Nelson.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way this thing kind of works is the IPO is going to close anytime between essentially like 8:57. We saw an early close last week, so we'll have to see if we get that again, and 9 p.m. So you're bidding all the way up to that point on these guys. Think of it just like the stock market. It's kind of a blend between DFS and stock market in terms of this is obviously focused on PGA Tour golf. They have a ton of other sports available. But yeah, essentially what you're trying to do is target the guys that you think are going to do well this week and finish well in the Byron Nelson tournament and make a bid on them, right? That price that you see next to those guys now isn't always the closing price. So make sure to monitor that. If you feel comfortable bidding a little bit higher than that, you can by all means do so now or wait to those last couple of minutes where we really see the bids sort of flying in at a rapid rate.
Brian says the pricing is going nuts. Patrick says this is his first week doing Jock Market and definitely feels like he should have deposited more than $50. Welcome to the club. I think that is a common sentiment. If you want to deposit and you haven't yet, use the code POWER20. It'll get you a $20 deposit bonus. We're giving away $100 in Jock Bucks tonight. I mean, there's a lot of free money out there, and you know, Joe, there's still a lot, and there's going to continue to be a lot of new people. So we encourage everyone, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you have comments, throw them in the chat. That's why we're here for the next hour to take those questions. Anything that you've received over the course of the week, Joe, that we should touch on before we kind of talk more about maybe the Wells Fargo Championship?
No, I talked to a couple of people this week who made their first deposit, which is always good to see. Some friends of mine in the Twitter sphere. So hope you guys are here with us now. Happy to have you along. And we kind of basically how this works is we walk through this process with you the next 45 minutes. We talk about guys we like, guys we don't like. And then once the IPO closes, we see who everybody's got. So you drop who the shares that you got in the chat, and it's good fun.
Osho asks, Rick, how'd you find out about this? Good question. I got introduced to this last summer, basically the concept of it. And I was like, I'm in. Like, I love it. This is something that I've always been interested in. There have been other companies that have tried to do sports/stock market type things, Joe, and they failed and they never really worked. And I was admittedly very skeptical about this, right? I was like, all right, it's, you know what, like I want this to be great, but I know others have failed. And then when I started to see the product and I started to see how smooth the app was, I was like, this has legs. I love the idea, Joe. Not only can you bid now, but during the tournament, you can buy and sell shares of golfers. And then for me, golf is the perfect sport. I know that Jock Market has other sports available. I'm obviously very biased towards golf. And I think that is the perfect way to utilize this technology.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with golf kind of lending itself perfectly toward this type of app. As you said, right? I think everyone's a little bit skeptical when you first see something like this, just because no one's really been able to do it before or seen anything quite like it before. So if you're new to this, start slow, right? Take baby steps, put that first deposit in, get your free $20. Maybe we give you another 20 in here, and work your way up and sort of kind of build that bankroll. You don't have to throw hundreds of dollars into this thing right off the bat, but it's a ton of fun. I think everyone who has ever bought in stocks or has a 401k or has played fantasy golf can kind of get the hang of it pretty quickly. And it's been a blast for us to kind of do the show with you guys over, the closing IPO hour as it's taking place.
Let me give a couple of concrete examples because we can look back to last week's Wells Fargo Championship, and you can see that this time last week, Rory McIlroy sold for $9 a share. He was, let's see, the 7th most expensive golfer last week. Joey sold for $9 a share. He closed the week because he won at $25 a share. But I saw guys who bought him on Thursday after he shot. I don't know what he shot on Thursday. 1 over, 1 under. He was not really in the mix of it. And I saw shares that were much cheaper than $9 that turned into $25.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned him. I know you were on him last week, so I should have just listened to you. Rory was the right move. You got a great number at Kiowa next week as well, I believe.
Yes, baby.
So congrats to you on the winner. But yeah, that's the beauty of this thing, right? Is it's kind of a gamble. It's when do you hold, when do you fold on guys? And last week, as a good example, I had a ton of shares of Phil Mickelson. So after the first round, I didn't quite see the number that I wanted to get for Phil because I thought that he had potential to finish over $10 a share. Those offers, I think I paid $2 something, and the bid price and the ask were right around $8, and I elected to kind of hold on to those shares. And big mistake.
It was just, the slow bleed over the final 3 rounds was just killer.
And to go from all the way to like first round leader to barely breaking even was tough. I'll say, but that's my own fault. There was a point in time where I could have got rid of that and made 4x on my money easily, but that's why we call it gambling.
A couple other notables. Keith Mitchell went from $2.14 last Wednesday to $16 a share on Sunday evening. Gary Woodland, a similar route, $3.77 to $15. And there's a question from Carl in the chat here. He says, bots buying everything for 1 penny more immediately after bidding? No, they are not. The bots are done. So remember, there was a great explanation. We dove into this deep last week, Joe. There are quote unquote jock bots in the market. Their only goal is to create a bit more action. They stop hours ago, right? I mean, they get turned off after, I believe, 25%. So when IPO opens, they go 25% of the length of the IPO, and then they're done, and they will never bid more than 80% of the fair value. So they are built to lose 20%. So Carl, what I assume is happening, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, people are very smartly putting in maximum bids right now on golfers. So if Carl is trying to bid $7.01 on Will Zalatoris and Joe has a $9 max bid in, Joe's max bid keeps going up for him automatically until it reaches his number. That's what I assume is happening here, Joe.
I would say so as well. Yeah. Well, we confirmed with the guys last week, Carl, because we had that question as well. So I think it's right around like 3. I think the IPO opens like 1 p.m. Eastern. So by like 3:30, they're done. They operate at a massive loss every week. So if you're being outbid immediately after bidding, that's because other people have a standing offer that is higher than yours currently. And that's why it's happening. So what I like to do is if you're going for multiple shares, Carl, put in like a 1 share offer right now. If you find a guy that you like and you want to stick him in your holdings tab, do 1 or 2 shares right now, and then wait until that last 5 minutes until you reach and you kind of see where he's at that point, and then go in for your 10, 15, 20, 30 shares. But the more that you continue to sort of bid these guys up right now, the higher the end price is going to be.
We already have a lot of movement in the market, so I want to get to the big board here shortly, but real quick, let me run through a couple of other things here. Joe Drew in the chat, he says, is there a way to track ROI percentage that includes IPO and all the later bids? So No, yes and no, right? So if you want to track the stuff, what I'm showing you right here, this is RickRunGood.com. It's free. You can go under PGA tools, you can go to free tools, and you can go to Jock Market. As far as I'm aware, Joe, there is nothing that tracks all of the trading, although I know we've exchanged emails with the team over there, and we're working on trying to give some insight on maybe some new dashboards and new reports that people could have access to, which ideally could track more of that in-game trading.
Yeah, absolutely. They're constantly working on, this is so new still. We could oftentimes forget about that we're less than a year into this thing. So they're constantly making improvements. Their main goal right now is to make sure that everyone's able to play this thing, right? So they're trying to make sure that these other states that are kind of holding things up are able to get pushed through, and we can get more people into the jock market, which will make everything more fun in terms of buying and selling during the event. But yeah, you have an unbelievable tool that's completely free on RickRunGood.com where you can track every player's IPO and closing price through every tournament. So you can isolate single events, or you can look at all 15, 16, 17 markets that they've participated in. You can see the ROIs right there and the players that are consistently returning value and those that aren't.
All right, here we go. First $20 to the Jock Market going out to Joe Murowski. I believe that is JJM5390. Congratulations. $20 coming to your account at some point in the near future after I email the guys at Jock Market and they credit your account. So congratulations. If you want to win $20 like Joe just did, again, make sure your username is in the chat. Do us a favor, hit the like button. Goes a long way. Certainly appreciate it. And my Joe over here, it is now time to unveil the big board. But before I do, any guesses of what who's going to be our most expensive golfer this evening?
So traditionally, when looking at this stuff, it's been Jon Rahm, right? He's kind of been the king of the jock market, although we saw him miss a cut last week for the first time ever in a jock market.
That's true. Ever in a jock market. Yep.
So the first time he's ever missed a cut, maybe people are a little reluctant to go back to the Rahm wagon this week. I think it's going to be the Texas native himself who tried to catch an early flight to get ready for this tournament last week. I'm going with Bryson. I think he's going to finish atop the board.
Well, as of this moment, Bryson DeChambeau is our most expensive golfer in IPO, already at $10.41 a share. What does that mean? It means that if you're a buyer of Bryson at $10.41, you need him to finish 11th or better, because 11th would pay out $10.50. But Joe, even more impressive, we already have 3 golfers above $10,000. It's Bryson at $10.41. It's Will Zalatoris at $10.25, and it's Jordan Spieth, $10 and a penny. 3 guys over $10.
I know. And what we've seen, Rick, recently, and you can kind of speak to this as well. Have you been eyeing this thing up for a couple hours? Bryson's been 1041 for a while. And what we have seen and what we've kind of noticed over the last couple of weeks is someone comes in and places this really high early bid on a player. And then it just kind of stays stagnant. I think people maybe are a little bit nervous about where's that price going to end up, right? If I bid 1050 right now, am I going to get any shares, or is he going to go for 1250? And what we've seen and what the data has kind of shown is oftentimes it kind of just hangs out right there, doesn't it?
It's actually a pretty good strategy. Like if you wanted to get Bryson come in 3 hours ago, put in $10.41, and everyone goes, well, right. But in the next, and knowing that the final moments of this thing, the final minutes of this thing get really spicy, the assumption is Bryson is going to continue to go up. We have not really seen that, especially with other examples where there's a really high price early in the IPO phase. But price aside, Bryson DeChambeau, you mentioned it, thought he missed the cut last week, Joe. He's, I have a lot of thoughts about this guy. Now he goes to TPC Craig Ranch. Of course, we've never seen on the PGA Tour. Are we buying Bryson?
He's getting close to that target price that I had on him, and I'll tell you, it was $11. And I don't, maybe he kind of hangs out there, but there's some concerns. Obviously, I think that his game is going to set up, from what I've seen from TPC Craig Ranch. This is a nice fit for Bryson, right? He's back in Dallas. He putted pretty. He went from essentially going for $1 a share last week to catching a flight back to Charlotte and returning a profit. Like, he ended up making people money last week after almost missing the cut. So he really stormed. He struggled on those par 5s the first couple of days. I think that of the guys at the top, I have the least concerns about Bryson right now. Some of the other guys besides Rom, who we saw miss that cut, Spieth we haven't seen in a little while, right? He's coming off COVID. We haven't really seen him since the Masters. Berger, I haven't seen a whole lot of. Hideki, like, what do we do with Hideki here this week? He's been, I believe, in quarantine in Japan for a couple of weeks. So I think that I have the least amount of concerns going into this about Bryson. And I think that if he stays at this kind of $10.50 mark, could be a great buy.
There is certainly a lot of question marks, I believe, in this field. We've got about 27, 28, 29 minutes or so until this IPO phase closes. The other Texans we talked about, I mean, these guys all get a bump, right? The Zalatoris, the Spieth, the Scotty Scheffler, $8.88. I think in other formats, Scotty Scheffler is going to be incredibly popular. I know he is many people's pick to win this week, Joe, and I think we are going to see a similar sentiment here in the Jock market. He's hanging out at $8.88 at the moment.
Yeah, we kind of seen that, haven't we? So we've seen, you see a guy show up on a lot of people's betting cards. He's going to be popular in DraftKings. And we usually see, essentially what Jock Market is here is a popularity contest for the week, right? So if you see him popular in other spots, he's likely going to be popular here. I would say he probably moves up. I think he gets to those mid-nines. I'm a little bit shocked at Zalatoris, and this is one guy who I was really hoping after last week because I was pretty high on him at the Wells Fargo. Coming off a miscut there, I was kind of hopeful, I guess, that maybe he might be able to get a little value on him this week, and already, 10 and a quarter. That seems really high for me.
Yeah, you were hoping to get the Zalatoris discount this week. That is certainly
stupid me.
Certainly not going to happen. A couple of questions from the chat, and I'll refresh our big board here. Joe, you mentioned something about a target price. So I think for our newcomers who don't understand what Joe's talking about, he is essentially setting a price for every golfer in the field of what he's willing to pay so that he doesn't get all flustered in the last couple of minutes and try to figure out how to allocate his funds. So Joe, if you could talk about that a little bit. And then Jesse is kind of looking for an idea of what a good target price for Sergio Garcia, multiple-time winner of this event, what that price might be.
Okay, so what I do, and essentially Jock Market kind of does some of this work for you, right, is they create a suggested price for every player in the field. So what that is based on is their rankings. So you will see what they call the fair value projected rank, and you will see they rank guys 1 through 163 based on their metrics, wherever they pull their data from. What I do in the simplest of terms is I re-rank those players. So if I see someone, for instance, this week, I have the biggest jump that I have, and this is a massive jump. So the projected rank that they have for Thomas Peters this week is 129th in a field of 163. I have Tom Peters 17th. So a massive jump there. So what that will do is now I will essentially, apply that target price as if he was the 17th best player. And I will look to see if guys are under that for them, that if they're, lower than that price, that makes them a good buy candidate for me. If they're over than that, then I can kind of look elsewhere. Sergio, to answer the second part of your question, this week, I'm actually pretty high on Sergio Garcia. I hope that I can end up with some of him. He's done pretty well in the Jock Market for me in the past. Obviously played really well in Austin down there at the match play. Disappointing finish at the Masters. I have a price on him right now of $6.90, and he is my 14th ranked player in the field, to answer your question, Jesse.
And how that translates to the scoring or the payouts, Joe is essentially asking Sergio to finish inside the top 22 or better, because 22nd would pay out $7 a share. So that's how all of these calculations are being done, and all of this thought process is being done. And we are blessed with the presence of Ken G in the chat. Ken, what's up? Good to see you, buddy. Asking a question about Jordan Spieth coming off of COVID, and if there is a precedent for performance afterwards. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, Joe. I think it's been a mixed bag. I'm trying to think. Scheffler, when he came back, had to knock off a little bit of rust. Joaquin, I think, had to knock off a little rust. And I remember some comments about Webb Simpson being like, I was more tired than usual in like the first couple of rounds that I played. Is there anybody? I'm trying to think of anybody who came back and was like immediately what we would have expected.
DJ at Houston.
DJ
when DJ at Houston, but DJ is like, does anything affect DJ?
He's not human.
Can anything rattle DJ? And I don't even know if COVID has a chance against that guy. But anyways, to kind of give my thoughts on him, look, this Spieth was, to Ken, when we started the jock market, Spieth was dreadful. People were bleeding money on Spieth, but you look at his last 8, he has turned it around. He's up 845% ROI his last 8 events. I have him as number 1 in approach, number 1 in birdies or better, number 1 in tee to green. Jordan Spieth is on fire. I'm a little bit concerned about the COVID because he said he hadn't got a whole lot of practice in. And he's not necessarily, even though he's from this area, real familiar with this course. That said, he's been so good if he can get it back. And the last time he played an event in Texas, the week before a major championship, he won.
I was just going to say he had to have won it, right? Because if you were bringing up that stat, he definitely won it. Yeah.
Valero, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Right.
Masters. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay. And before I go back to the big board here, there was one question at the very start I wanted to get back to. Okay. Dan wants to know about Dylan Meyer. He Monday qualified. He has super long odds. I don't know much about Dylan Meyer. I don't believe he has status on any tour. I think he's been all over the place. He might have status on what used to be called the Mackenzie, the Canadian Tour. I don't know what they're calling it this year because they're playing it in Alabama. That doesn't start until this summer. So I think he might have status there, but there is very little information. He's a multiple-time All-American at Illinois or Indiana. I think it's Illinois, and I just don't know enough about him. I think there's a lot of guys, Joe, and we see this all the time. There's a lot of guys who are All-Americans. There's a lot of guys, like they were all All-Americans, right? It's just golf is very deep. It's hard.
Yeah, and sometimes we do see these guys who Monday qualify come in, and it's almost like the pressure's off a little bit in the actual tournament. Like they made it and they play pretty well. I know Seamus Power last week, for example, made a cut, made a decent little run. But yeah, I would definitely default to your take on him there. I don't really have a feel one way or the other on Meyer.
Let's pop on back to the big board here because there has been a little bit of movement. Bryson DeChambeau moving up a little bit, $10.70. Zalatoris and Spieth have not moved. And then, guys are starting to stack up behind Joe, but one name that hasn't started to stack yet is a name that I know you love and one that got a little bit of my money this week at long odds. It's Brooks Koepka making his first start since the Masters.
Oh my God, you're betting Brooks?
I already bet him, yeah.
I have to take him now. You're the whisperer lately. Every time you say someone and I don't take him, he ends up like winning. So I can't miss Brooks, and he's $5 a share right now. But I have a lot of concerns, and I'm a Brooks homer, but it just looked sketchy at the Masters, right? And I saw his presser, and there wasn't a whole lot to glean a ton of confidence, brother. He said he still has trouble bending down. He's never played or practiced at Kiowa, so he kind of didn't know what to think about that either. But yeah, I mean, the price is right now. $5 a share. He's priced below Jason Day. He's priced below Charles Schwartzel. Like, come on. Like, this is Brooks. If he shows up and his game is right, he's a much better player than either one of those guys.
The concerns I share. Don't get me wrong. I share the concerns, but the fact that there are concerns is what gives you such a good number on him, right? It's this. We can rewind the same things we talked about last week with Rory McIlroy. Concerns, not knowing where his game is, but when he figures it out, he is going to win golf tournaments, and you're not going to see this price again. It's almost a carbon copy of what we saw about Rory McIlroy last week. So he got my money. Let's see how it goes. He got my money.
And you make a great point. Like this stuff, like what we do and try to prognosticate golf is so hard, right? Like you almost just have to say it's Brooks. Like forget what you saw at the Masters. Just take him. The same logic you could have applied to Rory last week. The same logic you could have frankly applied to Keith Mitchell, who was coming off maybe the worst putting performance of all time.
Yep.
Like the worst, I think, maybe in your history, and having the stats in terms of strokes gained putting. And then he top fives. Same could be said about Gary Woodland last week, who had one of the worst ball striking performances I've ever seen Gary Woodland had. He didn't have a shot that he could hit the green with the week before, and he comes out and plays really well. So this stuff is hard. It's random. If you see a good player at a good number, you should probably just take it.
And then out Keith Mitchell was putting with a bent putter for the final round. And it's
True.
like, how would we have ever have known that? Like, it's just,
I know.
you have to embrace the volatility a little bit, which kind of interests me. You know, guys like Mark Leishman's getting a lot of questions in the chat right now, Joe, because
Okay.
he's someone that I think he's pretty polarizing. You know, he doesn't do anything sexy, but he finds a way to win golf tournaments. He won at Torrey Pines last year. He won with Cam Smith just a couple of weeks ago, and we're starting to see kind of the momentum build on Leishman, and now he gets to play TPC Craig Ranch. And I think I'm not a big Leishman guy, but this kind of feels like a good week for him.
Yeah, you know, there's actually there's three guys in the field this week who are all coming off a victory. So you have Leishman, you have Sam Burns, and then you have Hideki. So, you know, all three of those guys, I mean, the confidence couldn't be higher with Leishman. You know, obviously it's a little bit different because it was a team event, but the guy did top 5 at Augusta right before then, as you mentioned. So, yeah, you know, you have the Aussie and Texas narrative, like you mentioned. So it seems like everything is shaping up nicely for a Mark Leishman week.
Let's give away $20. I've got $20 to the Jock Market going out to Sir William Fancy. Whoa, how fancy. Thank you for joining us this evening, Sir William. We are graced with your presence. Thank you. $20 coming in your direction as soon as possible. And if you would also like to win $20 to the Jock Market, drop your Jock Market username in the chat so that we can pick your name and we can send you money. Joe, let's go back to the big board. Let's start getting down into some of these cheaper, what we call penny stocks. And there are certainly some names sub $5. You mentioned Keith Mitchell, ball striking maverick from last week. Carlos Ortiz, who was in it for about 5 seconds until he imploded.
Jeez.
Thomas Peters here, $4. That's a name that you mentioned. And actually, let me tie that into one of the comments that we got here about I'm going to take this question from Ryan, mostly about the Euro guys and how we kind of treat them in the Jock Market. Rosner's here, Catlin's here, Thomas Peters is here. These guys that primarily reside on the European tour. They don't get a lot of exposure to us Americans who are now dumping our money into the Jock Market. Is there automatically built-in value on some of these guys?
To some degree, yes. I don't love these guys that come over for like 1 week before a major championship from the Euro Tour. You know, the golf is just played a lot differently over there. And I feel like this may be a wrong take, but I would feel more comfortable in a guy who has stacked together really good performances coming up from the Korn Ferry Tour at this point than I would from the Euro Tour. That may be wrong, but that's just kind of how I feel. And I feel like those courses correlate better to events like TPC Craig Ranch, where I think it's going to be a birdie fest. I think we're going to see maybe 20 under par. I think that the courses line up similarly, that are played here stateside. So, I would look at a guy like Peter Uihlein, first, second, seventh, a guy that's just stacking together great finishes in terms of confidence there than I would versus John Catlin this week.
I'm a huge advocate of that Korn Ferry Tour. And you're right. If you have ever seen a Korn Ferry Tour event or even any of these Monday qualifiers, you have to be foot on the gas every single hole. If you're making par, you're almost losing ground. I mean, these things are unbelievable shootouts. And it kind of does train these guys to just be like, all right, well, let's go out and make as many birdies as I can. And when you get to a course that we think is going to play as easy as this one could, it's certainly worth a consideration. Going a little bit deeper into the second page here. So those names that we mentioned, John Catlin, he's currently $2.78. Antoine Rosner, $2.33. And then there are some of these Korn Ferry guys or guys that at least split time teeter at $2.22. Seamus Power, $2.22 as well. But as I highlight, some of these names here, Joe, Cameron Champ, he's a more established PGA Tour pro. Nate Lashley has won on tour. Is there anybody in this range that you're going to be keeping a close eye on for the next 15 minutes?
Yeah, there's actually, looking at my board right now, there's like 4 guys there and they're all kind of right in a row. So they're right at like $2.50. It's Champ, Burgoon, Gordon, and Chappell. I feel like any of those guys have the potential to pop. Champ, obviously the longest guy in the field this week. Will Gordon's not far behind him. Bronson Burgoon, if you're going with that sort of bomber narrative, hits it a long way as well. And Kevin Chappell, we've seen he can just get really hot and make a lot of birdies. And I think that
remember he shot a 59 like his first round back from back surgery or whatever last year. Was that last year?
Exactly. I think that he won. I know he won in Texas. I'm not sure if that was the Valero.
It was.
But I'm kind of looking for guys like that who just hit it a long way, just because I don't know enough about this course. But what I have seen is that it's fairly wide open. You can kind of land a jet on some of these fairways, and it's just bomb and go, bomb and get a wedge in your hand and go. And it's going to turn into a putting contest. Christoph Ventura is another guy I was kind of looking at right around that $2 range. So I think could be some good value here this week, in a week where it's very top heavy, right? You have those first 6, 7, 8 names right around Fitzpatrick, Scheffler, and then it just kind of drops off. And I don't think there's much difference between a guy like Gordon or Champ or Ventura when you go up to, you get into the Leishmans and the Garcias. Like, I think that they could finish around the same spot this week.
Top heavy, I think, is a really good way to describe the field this week. Even when you look at simulations or you look at the odds, there's 4 or 5 guys that eat up the vast majority of the win equity in this field. Let's go back to the big board, because that Bryson DeChambeau, he's not staying there. He is on the move. Jeez. $11.12. I believe that pushes him past your value, Joe, on him. So he might be out of your price range. So that is essentially asking Bryson DeChambeau to finish inside the top 8 or better. Zalatoris and Spieth have not moved since we came on air. Scotty Scheffler is closing the gap. He's $9.58. John Rahm closing the gap, $9. Let's talk about a couple other polarizing names for this week. Let's start with Ryan Palmer. We know that he holds the course record here. We know he's a Dallas guy. He lives 20, 30 minutes away from the course. He's currently $7.24, which at the moment would it be asking him to finish about 21st or better.
I'm going to pass on Palmer this week. I feel like he's going to be, in terms of popularity, in a week where we don't know much about this, people are going to see that course record. They're going to have the Texas and the win narratives fully in play. And I just feel like that popularity and the public sentiment on him is going to push his price above what I'm sort of willing to pay for him. If he ends up, hypothetically, if he ends up around, let's say, 850, he's got to finish basically in the top 15 or better. I just like, I'm gonna put my money elsewhere, I think, this week. How do you feel about him? Where do you stand on him?
This is kind of a weird take to have, but I like him so much that I can't like him this week because of all of the, he's going to be too popular. The price is going to be driven up. I don't care if it's Craig Ranch. I think he can play well anywhere, so I'm not going to pay the premium this time around. It is actually a compliment to Ryan Palmer in the same way it was a compliment to Max Homa to avoid him last week, because it's I'm not going to pay the premium. I'll just get him somewhere else. I think it's a compliment to him. The other name is Hideki Matsuyama, currently $6. He is coming off the victory at the Masters. We know it has probably been a lot of accolades and a lot of awards and a lot of commitments and a lot of travel and all this stuff in the past couple of weeks. And based on all of that, I think the public sentiment says, you know what, Decky, we'll pass. We're going to take a cautious approach because our Masters champion is only $6 a share.
Yeah, I think this is, for me, I just think this is tune-up week for Hideki. I think it's getting back in the rhythm of tournament golf. I think that, him going to Japan and having to basically stay in a hotel room, from what I've heard, for 2 weeks, can't be good for your golf game, right? So, look, he had the performance of a lifetime at the Masters. He broke through. He went home. He had the parade. He's now back. He's just trying to get himself geared up for the next major championship, kind of in my opinion. But that said, the price is definitely right at $6 per share. I just don't – I think it's going to be one of those guys this week that I'm probably just going to have to plug my nose and just kind of avoid, because I saw somewhere this week where Hideki, off of 4 weeks off, has missed the cut 50% of the time throughout his career. So I feel like we could have a miscut incoming for Hideki. Even if he finishes in that $7, $8 range, he has the potential to go to 1, right? More than I think he has the potential to go to 15 plus.
We are 10-ish, probably less than that, eight or so minutes away from this IPO closing. You're going to want to get your bids in now. And also, Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give away another $20 to the Jock Market. I'll give another 20 away after IPO closes, and then I'll give a third 20 away at the end of the show. But for now, our winner of 20 Jock Bucks, CW Solomon 36. Charles, congratulations. We'll get you all set up there. Make sure that your Jock Market username is in the chat so that we can give you an opportunity to win. And Joe, we've got a man on the move. John Rahm has snapped through $10. We've got 4 golfers over $10 now. Bryson over 11.50, 11.66, and Jordan Spieth has moved up 3 cents from $10.01 to $10.04. Would it be a record if we got Scotty Scheffler over $10 and we had 5 guys over $10? Has that ever happened before?
I don't think I've ever seen it. And I think what's the record for highest IPO price? I mean, Bryson's got to be getting close here at this point.
I thought John Rahm was 12 something once. I have it right here.
I think it was Waste Management.
Rahm at Waste Management was 1251, and Webb at Sony, believe it or not, was 1250. So we might see that. Bryson could potentially get to 1252 and become the most expensive golfer in the Jock Market ever, which would be pretty fascinating stuff. Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, for what it's worth, his fair value projected rank from Jock Market in terms of pricing this week is $13.98. So you're still well under where they projected him to be, even at $11-12.
Okay, fair enough. Now there is, let's see here. Okay, Scotty Scheffler, 1 penny away from breaking into the $10 mark. You know, we have guys, you mentioned Sam Burns. This to me feels like a little bit of disrespect. You know, the guy's coming off a win, which I understand that's toxic, but he's had the extra week off. This is not a one event stretch for Sam Burns where he's been good. He's been phenomenal all year long. $6.55 at what I think is probably going to be one of the better courses on tour for him.
I totally agree. Great course fit. Very interested in Burns, seeing where the price point is. Not so much worried about, the candle burning out in terms of winning that victory. I think for a guy like Burns and his talent level and his ceiling in terms of his trajectory, it only is going to give him more confidence, right? That I can close the deal now. And I feel like that could really be a monumental win for him in terms of skyrocketing, his career potential here. So yeah, definitely. Where's his price currently at?
I have him at 655.
Okay. 655 would definitely be in the buy range for me.
All right. Scrolling down a little bit further, Charles Schwartzel has turned his game around. Also, his results are not going to include that runner-up finish at the Zurich Classic. I see Jason Day, who seems like a shell of himself. And a question, there was a question in the chat. I don't have it handy, but it was about Taylor Gooch, who I'm pretty bullish on. He's been hitting his irons well. I think that there's a chance that this thing turns into a bit of an iron fest. But anybody in this next, tier or two down, Joe, that you're going to be adding to your favorites list for the next couple of minutes here?
So I have some interest in, I thought about Sebastian Munoz, but he's just been trending really poorly lately, but it seems like it could be a great fit. I'm still looking at Thomas Peters just because the guy's talent level is just there, and he needs a really good finish on the PGA Tour in order to get in more events, right? To stop having to tee up at the Corrales and Punta Cana and all this stuff. Another guy that I'm kind of interested in, and I kind of wanted actually your take on this guy because I wrote down some numbers here. Wyndham Clark is 355. So Wyndham Clark is just interesting in that he's 5th in distance, 1st and around the green, but his approach numbers are terrible. He's like 120. Like, do those two typically correlate? And I wanted to ask you about this because you're kind of the statistician here. If you're really bad in strokes gained approach, does that help you in terms of strokes gained around the green, or are those two totally separate things?
So not necessarily, but if the guy is kind of if his strokes gain total number, which it is better than his approach number, he's going to have to figure that out in some place. So it makes sense that he's making it up somewhere on or around the greens, but it is not necessarily true that if you are bad at one, you are good at the other. Now he is probably just kind of by default practicing it more because he's missing so many greens, right? Like he's putting himself in so many situations that he's seriously probably just getting more reps at it. Now it doesn't mean that more reps makes you better, or improves your stats or anything, because it's not a counting stat, but it it does make sense that he would practice that. He would be better at it because he does miss so many greens. But to your point, the type of golfer that I think benefits the most from TPC Craig Ranch, or one of the types of golfers, would be someone like Wyndham Clark, who is 4th in driving distance and 213th in accuracy. So normally a normal event, he would bomb it and he would be in trouble. Well, there's not much trouble out there. He's going to miss fairways. That's fine. He'll go find it, or he'll just hit it out of the rough. It's not that big of a deal. He's not going to be penalized as much. So I actually think the very long, very inaccurate golfers are ones that probably get a boost this week, is kind of the way that I'm looking at it.
Love it.
All right, let's give this one more refresh here, and we are going to let you, Joe, go do your thing. So here, if you're new, what we do is in the last couple minutes here, which we are certainly in the last couple minutes, we tell Joe, get out of here, go do your thing, and he will make his bids, and we'll talk about the guys that he actually ends up getting. So, Joe, normally we talk about 5 or 7 guys. That's usually your core for your portfolio. I'm assuming something similar this week.
Yeah, something similar, totally. A lot of those guys are at the very top or a little bit out of my range. I prefer to kind of stick to the $7-8 range for my top guys. So we'll see who kind of finishes around there. There are some names and some guys who have been off for a little while that I have some interest in. Then I'll go down to that $4 or $5 range, try to grab a couple of those guys, and then see if I can land a couple bombs in the $2 range that can make a cut and give me a nice little sweat on the weekend, a chance to maybe sell some shares and return early profit there.
All right, buddy, get out of here. Good luck. We will talk to you in a few minutes. It is, by my clock, 8:55 on the East Coast, which means this IPO phase is going to close in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So this is usually when things get very quiet in the chat. It's usually when I start to take you home. And we have seen Bryson DeChambeau stay around that $11.66 mark. But John Rahm, the sweetheart of the jock market, is pushing him now up to $11.49. We have 2 golfers over $11. We have another 2 over 10, both Jordan Spieth and Will Zalatoris at $10.25. What does that mean? Well, if you're buying Zalatoris and Spieth at $10.25, you need them to finish 11th or better to return you a profit. After that, Scotty Scheffler probably just moments away from cracking into the $10 mark, unless he already has. Before I refresh this, Matt Fitzpatrick, $8.88, Daniel Berger, $8.25, and Hideki Matsuyama is making a little bit of a move. He's up to $8.08. That is the area code for Honolulu, by the way. And also, if you are a buyer of Hideki at $8.08, you are looking for him to finish 17th or better. Can Decky go out and the start after winning the Masters finish 17th or better? I guess we're going to find out. Let me give this big board a refresh here, because we are now in that window. The window of 90 seconds that at any moment this IPO phase can close. So you're certainly going to want to get your bids in. A couple of questions about Lee Westwood. A couple of questions about Ricky Fowler. I do not personally believe this is the week that Ricky Fowler turns it around. I think that we're going to have to see it coming for Ricky. I think there's going to be more of a natural build for his success. Back to the big board. Bryson DeChambeau still at the top. Still not much movement there, and we haven't seen Scotty Scheffler break into the $10 mark, but we are seeing guys like Sam Burns move up. We are seeing Brooks Koepka match Hideki Matsuyama at $8.50.
Very early close.
A very early close in the jock market.
Wow,
this
8:57 still shut her down.
It's closed. That's it. Very early close. Let me throw up the banner. How I didn't see much movement, Joe. Are we gonna have one of these situations where people were left holding the bag?
Yeah, I think even myself, if things close the way that I think they did, I think I only have 4 guys here. So I wasn't able to get it all in time. And I think a lot of people may be in the same situation, but with the early close, what that presents to us is opportunity, right? That's how you got to look at it. So there could be potential spots in tournament. And as soon as this thing does, actually, as of right now, there are already bid and ask price on a number of golfers out there. Bryson is, for instance, a $10.94 bid price. That's what someone is willing to pay for Bryson right this very second. And the ask is $15.44 already. So seconds after the IPO close, we have some offers out there on both ends of the stick.
All right. Well, listen, I'm letting the dust settle. I'm letting my big board refresh. So in the meantime, we're going to do two things. We are going to get not only Joe's portfolio, but I'm going to give away $20 more to the Jock Market. And that right there goes to Tony M0704. Congratulations. We will get you set up with $20 to the Jock Market. I've got one more $20 Jock bill to give away, and I'll do it at the end of the show here in just a few minutes. But now is that time, Joe. You get to share with the world who you are riding this week in your portfolio.
Okay, so I didn't have much time to go down to the guys very low this week, but I'll take a look as soon as we go off the air here. But here's who I got. I got Sam Burns, who I spoke about.
Yes.
$7.80. And right below him at $7.50, I got some Siwoo Kim action.
Siwoo.
So we didn't talk about Siwoo. Yeah, but Siwoo has
strokes on approach recently. He's been awesome.
Definitely. Boom or bust with Siwoo. So I'm going to roll the dice with him a little bit there. Into the $6 range, I got some shares, a few shares of Mark Leishman. And then all the way down at $4, I took a little bit of Tom Hoagie, who's ranked out really well for me. Second in approach over like his last 24 rounds, 13th tee to green. Just got in with the Matt Wolff withdrawal to the PGA Championship. So maybe some good vibes in the Tom Hoagie inner circle this week will sort of free him up to go out there and have a good week down there at Craig Ranch.
The thing I like about Tom Hoagie is he is not afraid to finish inside the top 10. You know, we talk all the time, right? What's someone's average finish? You know, you can have an average finish of, let's call it 37th, and you finish between 25 and 50th every single week. Or you can have an average finish of 37th and you go MC, 3rd, 7th, MC, 6th, right? And that's like what Hoagie does. And when he does the good ones, you're going to get a piece of the pie. So I certainly do not mind investing in those guys in the Jock Market. I like that strategy.
Love it.
Let's go over to the big board. Bryson DeChambeau, our most expensive golfer this week, $11.66, right behind Jon Rahm, $11.49. Those two should not be any surprise.
Yeah, you're right. Bryson up at the top, Rahm in second. That's kind of how I think we all saw this playing out. They were number 1 and 2 for me. Spieth, interestingly, barely crept up a couple cents there from where we saw him at the Open. So I think just the question marks circling around Spieth, gave people a little pause for concern. You can't ignore the recent form, but I think that's the one thing that kept him from being maybe a little bit higher this week.
Did
Scheffler break through? No, he didn't.
He didn't. Yeah. So far for me, the biggest surprise here would be that Scheffler is not more expensive than Zalatoris. I love both of these guys. I think they're great, but I thought that the sentiment on Scheffler this week was going to be a bit stronger. Not that, it's 26 cents. I'm splitting hairs here, but I guess I was just surprised about not seeing Scheffler finally snap through that $10 mark. Right below, Berger at $9.25, and this Matt Fitzpatrick at $8.89. That could be pretty devilish. He's been dynamite.
I know. And he was like so close, and he's been the guy I've been torn on all week in terms of betting cards, in terms of one and done, all this stuff. Like, is this Fitz week? It could be, right? I think that he's picked up some length, which has served him well, and he's just putting the lights out. That was the one thing for me that I looked at. He's had, when I kind of dove a little bit deeper, I think 4 of the last 5, let me find it here. Yeah, 4 straight tournaments losing strokes on approach, where he's been able to really make that up with tremendous putting weeks, +3, +4, +7 strokes game putting weeks. And, what we've seen is obviously he's a great putter, but that's hard to withstand. And the way that you win golf tournaments on the PGA Tour is with your irons and is with your approach play, and it always has been. And losing in 4 straight was kind of the one negative blurb, I guess, that you could say about Matt Fitzpatrick this week. Otherwise, it looks like a perfect setup.
Brooksy and Hideki, the 2 question marks, both went for $8.50, so they just stayed together there. Sam Burns, you mentioned, is $7.80. He made it into your portfolio for this week. Trying to go down and just see if there's any interesting names. Peters did close at $5.55. Let me see here. Ricky Fowler, $4.25. Oh boy.
Yeah. Ricky and
what are we doing with this guy?
Ricky and Jason Day, man, like both of them. Like, what do we do with either one of them? Right? They were both so good. In Day's fall, I think from the top has been more drastic because he was the former number one player. I was on him last week a lot. I thought that a lot of narratives lined up. I think some of those same narratives could line up this week. Just concerning, man. I've been on him so many times recently because I feel like he always presents a valuable IPO price. And you look at that now, even $5.04, you're like, man, Jason Day, it kind of sticks out to you. But I've just been bleeding money on him left and right.
I've been on record saying that Jason Day and Ricky Fowler should have sent Jordan Spieth a gift basket because he was providing cover for their downfalls, right? All we were talking about was Spieth. Well, now that Spieth is back, it's a lot harder to cover for these guys because they were. Jason Day at one time, literally the number one player in the world, and then Fowler just can't figure it out. Going a little bit further here, we got a couple of names that we mentioned earlier. Peter Uihlein, $3.52. I saw John Catlin on here, $3.20. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else that might be super interesting here. There was a comment in the chat about taking a strategy of, let me see if I can find this. It was basically, here we go. This week, trying heavier buys on $2 to $4 guys. So basically, if anybody goes off, top 25, top 20, I think this is a pretty good strategy for Jock Market. We routinely see those middle tier, lower tier guys. There's only so much downside. They can't really kill you, and they have plenty of upside.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, you're right. I think that this is a viable strategy. The one guy we see up there consistently on the leaderboard, I think employs this quite often. So it's pretty much all upside, right? Like the lowest you can go on a $2 guy is you lose half your money and he goes down to $1 if he finishes dead last. But if he somehow finds his way into that top 20, he's returning multiple X on your dollar. So I think this is a very viable strategy. It's just about picking and choosing those right guys because there's so many of them. There's 40, 50 guys that end up down there in that range. And it's about really isolating the 1, 2, 3 of them that you think have a good chance at the top 25.
One question about why you are seeing either negative or positive numbers in the Jock Market right now from Drew and Joe. This is really just the difference between what you paid and then what Jock Market's fair value was. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it's pretty much that suggested price that you see when you click a player during the IPO. If it says it's $6.44 and you ended up paying $7 for him, then you're technically going to be in the negative 56 cents per share. Don't worry about it, Drew. It's all going to change almost immediately come Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like that number will fluctuate. And the only one that really matters is that ask and that bid price during the event, because that's what someone is willing to pay for them. So if you have shares of a guy, it doesn't really matter what that price shows. It's what someone's willing to pay for him. And then obviously the price when the tournament ends. So don't worry too much into that now. A lot of the times it looks like you're taking a loss, immediately after IPO, but things shake out differently.
Tim says, I ended up with only one share of Whaley. I got outbid in the last few seconds on Spieth and Hoagie. Tim, you got Joe. Joe sniped you in the last few seconds on Tom Hoagie. Joe, what are you doing, man?
Sorry, Tim, man. I didn't know you were after him, man. Maybe I would have changed things up differently. But your boy, I know you've been high on Vince Whaley. I didn't know if you'd heard of the guy a couple of weeks ago when you brought him up. Now he's going for like $4 a share, but it's wild, the rise of Vince Whaley from the $1 penny stocks, and now he's like kind of a regular that people are looking to target.
That's what happens when you make like 7 cuts in a row and they're all like 25th to 35th or something like that. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, Joe. So we are now, we're now live. I mean, this is, you can go, you can buy, you can sell, you can get involved in the Jock Market. And we saw last week, Rory McIlroy struggled in the first round, ends up winning the golf tournament. You could have got shares of Rory much cheaper. And I think that keeping an eye on the weather this week will be important. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot, but it looks like maybe Saturday into Sunday, we might be getting some rain. And you know what the PGA Tour loves to do? Preferred lies, brother. They love putting ball in hand. And if you put ball in hand, there will be a bigger emphasis on guys in the fairway because they will be able to pick up their ball. So keep that in mind. Any other things that you might look for in terms of live kind of trading here?
Yeah, it gets windy, it gets rainy out in Texas, so definitely keep an eye on that. And I'll pump our tires here a little bit. We were right last week when we talked about pay attention to that Friday afternoon weather. Right? Like that was a huge difference. Like we saw guys getting on flights home. Literally and come back the next morning. So yeah, pay attention to that, because if you see something like that arise and the afternoon's going to get really tough, and you have a guy 1-2 strokes outside of the leaderboard. I mean, we saw this situation perfectly right in front of our eyes, and Bryson kind of brought it to everyone's attention, where you can go from 80th in $1 a share to all of a sudden you make the cut, to all of a sudden you finish 9th, and you're making people a ton of money. So if people hang an offer out there on a guy 1 or 2 outside, and you pay attention to that weather, see something coming up, maybe an opportunity to buy. Definitely.
I'm glad you said that, because we literally described exactly what was going to happen. I think we actually said it's going to move 2 shots. It moved 2 shots. Like it was perfect. Yes. I'm so glad about that. I've got one more $20 giveaway here, and I've picked the name. I just have to find the comment, and it goes to, oh boy. I can't find it, but the username is LaMarcus Malvo. LaMarcus, congratulations. We will get you set up with $20 into the Jock market. Why can't I find your comment? I don't know. Either way, that was it for the Jock Bucks. We'll get you all set up, and we'll email those guys over. Joe, this is, I hate to call it a tune-up, because it's a big event. They're giving away like $1.4 million to it, but we are getting also the PGA Championship next week. So that's probably going to be a blowout on the Jock market. We know major championships get more liquid. This would be a really good time to get your feet wet, understand everything, so that you are ready to rock and roll for next week.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mentioned that earlier today. So, if you're new to this, keep an eye on this app during the round Thursday, during Friday, make a couple of trades, figure out what works, what doesn't work, where you made the right move, where you made the wrong move. You can kind of develop a strategy there that's going to set up nicely next week. I cannot wait for Kiowa Island. It's going to be a great event. All the big names are going to be there. I'm just hoping, I feel like it's been a while since we got alpha v alpha. I want that in a major championship. I want Bryson v Rom v DJ and them all to be there, and it to be close down the stretch. I think this course is going to provide that for us. I'm hopeful. I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for next week. Thank you all for joining us, and we appreciate you guys. That's
why Brooks is going to win this week, because it would just add one more heavyweight with no question marks.
Put gas on the fire. Yeah.
We'd have Rory, we'd have Spieth, we'd have Rom, we'd have Bryson. It'd just be everybody versus everybody. It'd be awesome. Okay, that'll do it. Another Wednesday night power hour in the books. That's Joe. I'm Rick. You can follow Joe at TorPix. You can follow me at RickRunGood. We will be back same time, same place next week for the PGA Championship. Thank you all very much for stopping by. It's been a great hour. Best of luck this week. A little bit early, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.
Peace.